must have stopped. Okay, there we go.
Um,
Do you see it recording now?
yeah, yeah. Thank you. And my second question was, are you able to chain validations on the same model? I had validates uniqueness of name from like the last class, and it wasn't running until I switched it to present. So I was wondering if you wanted to do both, right? Like if you wanted to check the uniqueness of a name and also the presence, like is it possible to do that?
Yes, it is. There's a couple ways that we could do that. So we could say validates presence of name. We could say validates uniqueness of name as well. And that would work. We can also combine, there's a lot of syntax for validations. We could also do this. We could say validates name and then presence true, uniqueness true. So we could validate the name all in one line. So I would say like this is probably like a style, like a stylistic thing. I think I would prefer this version. I would prefer one line to validate the column and have all of the column, all of the validations there. So we could validate name, validate uniqueness, and then if it got really long, we could do something like this. So we could say validates name. I think we could do it like this: presence true, uniqueness true, and then if there was like a longer one, like numericality, and numericality usually takes a hash and something like that. Yeah, and I don't know if that syntax would be exactly right. That one might need to be on that line, but yeah, that's how I would do that.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Lee?
I was wondering what a test for that would look like. Would you need to make, like on line 5, would you need to make that into a like multiple lines of different tests? Like it should validate this, it should validate presence of, or could you also do that on one line?
I would make a set. I don't think there's a way you could do that all on one line. I think that would each be a separate should it match your test. Do I have an artist spec? I must have spelled that wrong. So the way I would test that is I would say describe validations. And then here I would say it should validate validate presence of name. And then I can say it should validate uniqueness of name. And let's go ahead and run that. Spec models artist spec. Validation failed name has already been taken. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to just run line 4 because that's where my validations block starts. And we'll see those pass. So then the next thing I want to do is I want to comment out my validations, make sure that my tests fail and they catch when I don't have validations, which it looks like they do. So yeah, that's what the testing would look like. And then I think now that we have those validations, it's not letting us create talking heads twice. So I'll just change this to talking dreads. Run the whole test suite. Sorry. There we go. Yeah, before it was saying, and now I can't create this artist because this one already is talking heads. Alex.
In your Flash message, if you've got something like line 5 where it says it has 2 things, can you separate those out to get different Flash messages, like leaving it all in one line, but in the controller, like if half of it is true?
Yeah, let me rephrase that just a little bit and go back to the lesson plan here. So this came up in one of the breakout rooms. So under the you do section, it asks you to use validations to display the errors attached to the model for a specific attribute in your Flash message. I think that's similar to what you're asking. I think really the way I would rephrase this is we just showed you how to make a generic Flash message like artist not created, required information missing. But what if you wanted to be more specific and say the name is missing? So yes, that is something we want to be able to do, and let's do it. So I believe yesterday you all talked about the errors object. Is that right? So let's go ahead and pry into our, I'm inside my sad path now. You can think of an if else statement as kind of like a fork in the road. So the else is the sad path in this case. So let me run the feature and try to hit this pry. And so in here, I've got my artist object. I can see it has a nil ID, so that's a hint that it's not valid. And I can even call artist.valid ? It'll say false. I could say .save, that will also say false. And then I can say .errors, and that will give me access to this active model errors attribute. And you can see it has this messages down here, and it even tells me the column name, and then it looks like a hash of the column name and then the message associated with it. So then usually the next thing that I'll chain onto this is .full_messages. Is this something that you all saw yesterday? So this is really great here. This is going to give me an array. And then something that I can do here that's even better is then I can chain on .toSentence here. And so Active Record, Rails has this built-in helper method. This is not a Ruby method. This is something we only get in the Rails library. And this will essentially take that whole array of messages and make a nice sentence out of it. So rather than this, I could actually just make this my Flash message. So I could just completely rely on the artist model to generate my error for me. So yeah, let's run this. And this is going to fail now because the name of the error has changed, or the text of the error has changed. But I'm okay with that. We can even see if we put a save and open page in our new spec here, save and open page, we can see what the message looks like. And there it is. It says name can't be blank. So truthfully, what I would do here is I'm just going to copy this and make this my expectation. So I could do it like this. I could just say name can't be blank. If I really wanted it to say like artist not created, like this, then I could interpolate errors.flash messages .toSentences, sorry, artist.errors.full messages .toSentence, like this. I can say artist not created, and then interpolate. My syntax is kind of off here. Something like that. So that's a couple of ways that I can do that. Really, you want to be taking advantage of this errors object. And now we can see the tests are passing. Mark.
I'm not sure if I can ask this question correctly, but does validates, when you ever use that, is it only associated with new and then you do like a conditional if statement with save, or can you use it with other things, or are there any other ways to use it?
Are you talking about this syntax?
Yeah, like I guess like right now I'm associating it with like new. So like when you do like something .new, then you try to kind of catch it in a conditional, but are there any other cases where you use it differently?
Yeah, and I would say maybe not where you use it differently, but where I would kind of throw it back to you, Mark. Where is another, or when is another time when your validations would run? So we've talked about creation. When's another time? Do you know, or we can bump to a friend?
I would guess like an update or something.
Exactly, yeah. So we would have something very similar when we update, because both create and update are trying to save information to the database. So I would go down here to update and probably do something similar. I would want to like write a test and yeah, do that as well. So yeah, rather than, I think I would change this to I'm actually not exactly sure if I would put the if statement here. I think you all, this is probably fresher in your minds. Does .update return true or false? I'm not sure what it does actually. But I would want to refactor this so that something returned true or false, and then I could say if that was true or if that's false. I could even just do if artist.valid at this point. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
I think the create and the update are the two key parts where you want to make sure that you're validating. Jen.
Side question, where you have render new,
Mhm.
is there a way there to have it autofill the fields with what you did have? So like when it refreshes the page, only the field that you didn't fill out is blank, but what you had typed in, like in this example, we just have name, but if we had like name, number of songs and something else, and we just missed typing in the name, would there be something that you could add to render new that would like repopulate the fields you did fill out?
Yeah, let's work through that a little bit. I did want to talk about this, and this really hits on the difference between redirect and render. So a redirect triggers, and I've got this diagram up here, so I'm going to annotate it a little bit. A redirect, when you are redirecting, I'll take some notes up here. So redirect is going to trigger a new HTTP request. I believe we looked at this a little bit like in depth, how it's like a 301 response, but we don't need to go too deep into that. By the way, can you all see me typing right now? Cool, okay. So redirect triggers a new HTTP request, which essentially means the whole Rails MVC process is restarted. So for example, we're going to go to routes, then we're going to go to a controller, then we're going to usually hit a model, and then we're going to render a view. I've got some noise coming through. Can y'all check that you're on mute? So then that's what a redirect is. A render is not going to trigger a new HTTP request. A render is the command that renders a view. This is the default behavior of a controller action. So essentially what I'm saying is that you've been using render all along. It's just that you don't have to manually say render this view. So for instance, if I go back to the code over here, let me move my notes up here. Under the hood, there is an invisible inside this new action, render new. Inside this index action, there's an invisible render index. Inside this edit action, there's an invisible render edit. So render is just the default behavior of Rails. It just says, go to the view, run all the ERB tag Ruby stuff, and then display an HTML document to the user. That is what render is doing. Versus redirect restarts this whole HTTP request cycle. So if I go back over here to my diagram, let's just kind of like visualize what that's going to look like. So if I'm redirecting, I'm in the controller, I say redirect, and that essentially skips the view. So if I'm redirecting, and let me be very explicit here. So this is for a redirect. I change that. Yeah. For a redirect, we are not rendering a view. There's no rendering that's happening. Step 5, step 4 do not exist. The render or redirecting is going straight to back to the user saying, hey, you actually need to start that whole HTTP request process again. So then the browser automatically sends a new request that gets routed back to the controller, will hit the model, and then the second time through will render the view. So redirect skips rendering a view, tells the browser, hey, trigger a whole new routing cycle. And then the second request, it's going to render the view. Versus a render from the controller is this step 4 essentially, is kind of what we're used to. It does step 4 and it does step 5, and that's what the user sees. So I probably went a little too fast for you all to take full notes there. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I would recommend like going back to the recording and pausing it if you missed any of that. So now I'll get into like how that affects the code next. Alex?
Just a quick question. Okay, so let's say they're filling out a form, right? We wouldn't want to redirect them back to the form and make them refill out the whole form again. How could we pass params to that form to have a value?
That's a good question. I would say that's kind of what our goal is right here. Yeah, so in this case, if I go back over to my code here and I look at our code, we have, when they filled in the form and they're in the SAD path, so essentially this is like, hey, you didn't fill out this form correctly, you're gonna need to try again. We are rendering, because if we redirect, that would essentially be restarting this whole HTTP request cycle and causing them to view a brand new form. We don't want to view a brand new form. We want to render a new form, but we want to pass some additional data to it. So how do we pass data to a view? Let's open our new view. So new.html.erb. So I believe we've done this before in class, but the way that we put in like a starter value in here is we use a value keyword here. And then what I want is I want something with, I'll just put like in a comment here, I want how about the invalid artist name. So we want to start off with whatever the user typed in, but for whatever reason, it's not coming through. Well, how do we pass something to the view? We do it with instance variables. So what we can do is we can make this artist an @artist, make this artist an @artist, and this one down here, change this to @artist, and then this would be accessible in this view. So because we're rendering the new view, @artist should be accessible over here. So I could say the starting value for this form field should be @artist.name. But because this view can also be rendered from new, this would throw an error if we just rendered this from new. So let's actually see. Let's run. I'm just going to run my whole test suite here. So this is my regular create a new artist test right here that's failing. This is failing because look, undefined method name for nil class on HTML line 3. So right here, new HTML.erb line 3. So this artist.name is nil because it has not been created from new, or it has not been passed from my new action. So what would I do here? Well, I'm just going to make a new artist and just make it a totally blank new artist. Nothing in it. It's going to have a blank name. That's how I get around that. And now my tests are passing. And let me take out this save and open page over here. And run these again. So that's how you can do that. When the thought in your mind, when you have this thought of like, how do I get information over to my view? The answer is almost always instance variables. Pass an instance variable over. So we use this artist object. This is probably not very interesting because this is just validating the presence of the name. So I think, oh wait, no, we've got uniqueness of name true. So let's see this in action, what this looks like. Migrations are pending. Rails DB migrate. Cool. Try that again. Go to /artists. I think there's a link here for new artist. And then if we try to create prints, now it says artist not created, name has already been taken. So because we added in the validation for uniqueness, our errors.fullmessages.toSentence line of code automatically creates the flash message for us. And that's where we get name has already been taken. All right. Any other questions coming up? I think those were the key pieces here: the rendering, the validations. Yeah, we got some more here. Let's go to Molly.
Sorry, there's a car alarm going off behind me, which is probably very annoying. I was wondering about in this you're using Flash Notice, and I think in the project somewhere you use Flash Alert, and I'm wondering like what the like if that's a style choice or whether that like what the difference would be or why we might choose one or the other.
I think usually the this key that you give to the Flash is usually used for styling. So this is creating the Flash, if you just think of it as a big hash that's like specially used for messages, well, we're just creating a key value pair. Notice that when we go to, I don't have it up. Let me pull up application.html.erb. Notice that when we're rendering the Flash message, we're iterating over all of them. And when we iterate over a hash, we get access to both the key and the value. But notice that we're not doing anything with the key. We just completely ignore this type. We're not referencing it in here. A way that you could use it, or the way that we very commonly use it, is we'll make a class out of it. So we'll say, use that type as the class of this HTML element, like so. And so then what I could do is I could go into application.css and add a rule here that all notice element HTML elements should have a text color of yellow. And so now when I look at my Flash message is yellow. That is just painful, painfully yellow. Oh, okay, that's a little better. Orange. But yeah, that's usually how you use that key.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome. Other questions? By the way, this plays really nicely with Bootstrap. So in Bootstrap, you the classes of your elements will be determine your styling. So if you just make these Flash notices correspond to Bootstrap classes, then you can very easily like make some really pretty messages.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, I think that is about it for SADPath and Flashes. Let's go ahead and take a break here, and we'll start with joins at 10:20. All right, we'll get started in another minute. Go ahead and pull up the slides. They are linked in the calendar event. I see some of you have jumped in them already. You will need those for this class. Natia,
Where would we find slides?
they're in the calendar event. I can drop them too.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah, they're in the cohort channel now if you need them as well. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, go ahead and pull up the slides. They're linked in the calendar event. I also just dropped the link in your cohort channel. You are going to need those a little bit later in class. Yeah. Cool. So let's shift gears and talk about joins. Yesterday, data validation, that was very much a database focused class. Today was a little bit more focused on like the feature side of things. How can we use what we learned about models to display things to the user, show things to the user. Now we're kind of back into database land here. So we're really focusing in on our database and what we can do with that. And we're going to be talking about a very important SQL topic of join. So this is important beyond Rails, beyond Active Record. This is just a very important concept that you need to know as backend developers. So for joins, I think I'm going to skip the practice. I'm going to save the practice for the end. Okay, so the first question here is like, what are joins and why do we even need them? So far, all of our queries, we've only needed one table. So for instance, song.all, give me everything from the songs table. Song.where, title is chicken fried. In this entire songs table, only give me back rows that match this title. And we can also use where to do any sort of attribute matching. We could say like where the name includes this little chunk. You all have some partial case insensitive tasks in your project. We can say where a value is less than or greater than or equal to something. So that's what a query with one table is like. We've also done queries that are have dealt with one table that is associated with a single record. So we've talked about associations a lot this pod. So something like song.artist, that is using my artist association on my song model to grab an artist. Or something a little bit more complicated, artist.songs.count. So how many songs does this artist have? So the key there is that we're dealing with two tables in a way. There's songs and artists in those queries, but notice that we're only dealing with one record from one of those tables. So for song.artist, we're dealing with a single song. For artist.songs, we're dealing with a single artist. Multiple songs, but still just one artist. So that's what we've done so far in class. So these queries so far do not need joins. This is these are non-join necessary queries. So sometimes we're going to need information from two tables, such as find the artist with songs that have been played more than 100 times. So notice that this is different than the previous one. We're talking about artist.songs. We're not looking at a single artist. Now we're looking at all of the artists and all of the songs associated with all of the artists, not songs associated with one artist, song associated with multiple artists. Or something like find all the songs where the artist name contains Prince. For all of the songs, look at their artist and check if that name contains Prince. So again, multiple records from multiple tables. So this is the point where we're going to need to use join statements. I want to pause here. Does anyone have any questions or any clarifications you'd like me to make? All right. If anything comes up, just raise your hand. I'll get to you. So these queries with information from 2, and it says 2, but really it's multiple. It's 2, it could be 3, 4, 5, 6, could be many. So joins is what's going to allow us to query data from 2 or more tables. So this is going to take that data from multiple tables and pull it into a single temporary table. I'll kind of circle back at the end of this class and talk more about like thinking about SQL queries, like visualizing SQL queries, and our grouping and aggregating class will really get into visualizing. So when we're talking about this single temporary table, so we're taking, if you're looking at my camera, I'm taking like table A, table B, and kind of like shoving them together. If I'm creating this one big table, it's going to have attributes from both tables. Sorry, I'm not quite there yet. And then each row in that temporary table is going to connect a record from one table to a record in another table. So for example, in our joined table, we're going to have artist and song information, and those are going to be related. Usually, this is by connecting the foreign key on one table to the primary key on the other table. And the caveat here is almost always, this is going to be always for mod 2, probably almost always for most of your jobs. Yeah. So each row is going to contain attributes from both tables. I'll get more into an example in a minute. Yeah. Any questions coming up so far? Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. So this one has the instructions here say open up a DB console and do it from the terminal. The terminal is not great for visualizing the output of SQL queries. So what I'm actually going to show you is how to do this in Postico. So in Postico, if I go, yeah, okay, so I'll just start at the beginning. Actually, let me start all the way at the beginning. Oh no, I just made a shortcut to my Postico database. Not what I wanted. Can I drag? There we go. It's not even, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to connect to Postico here. This is just going to connect to this Brian Zanti database. I'm going to back out of this and go to localhost, and I'm going to go find setlist development. And I can click on this SQL query thing right here, and this will just allow me to execute SQL queries. So I've already typed out the SQL queries that I want here, and I put them on multiple lines. So what I can do in Postico is I can click on a line like this top one, select star from songs, and click execute statement. Is this hard to read? Do I need to make this bigger? Maybe a little bit bigger. Oh, cool, I can just do it right there. Perfect. Actually, why not just make it that big? Yeah. So you can kind of see that this one is highlighted. So I can click execute statement over here. And this will return to me everything in my songs table. The second one here is select star from artist. So we can see what our artist table looks like. And then the last one here is our join statement. So we've talked about joins, what they do a little bit. Here's the actual syntax for joining these two tables together. And I'll go ahead and click execute. And now we can see that big joined return value here. And let's make this one bigger as well. Cool. So take a minute to look at this. Yeah. And yeah, if any questions are coming up, go ahead and put your hand up. So we can see in this join statement some of the things that I had talked about over here. I'll get back there in just a second. So we said it connects records from one table to a record in the other table. So if we look over here, we can see artist ID, which is our song column, and this is pointing to 1. And if I go all the way back over here to the left, this ID is our artist column. So there's the connection, 1 to 1. And if you just kind of go down the line here, you can see all of these match up. So artist ID all the way on the right for this one matches artist ID on the left for this one. Artist ID on the right for this one matches artist ID left. And it just goes all the way down like that. Those are matching. So that is the connection between the two. We can also see that the rows contain attributes from both tables. So we can see our song titles. Oops, I just sorted. That's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, that should be fine. So we can see our song titles. We can also see our artist name. Let's go to Natia.
So I am curious about the necessity of the join statement. If you were to just give like the tables aliases, right? So like make songs A and artist B. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
then
go for
and
it.
then you just did a where you said a.id equals b.artist ID and you updated the select statement, it would work exactly the same, right?
Oh, interesting. I've never thought about that. Let me try it. So what you're saying is
It would be songs A.
from songs A. So we're giving this table an alias.
Yeah, get rid of the join and then artist B.
Yeah.
So comma, artist B. Get rid of the on, put it where. And then it'd be a.id. And then b.artist ID. And then up in the beginning, instead of artist star and song, you need A and B star, yeah.
Yeah. Let's try it. So column B dot artist ID, artist dot, oh, I think songs were AID. Yeah, I think songs is A, so songs has the artist ID. Okay, let me just switch B and A here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you're right,
like,
that did work.
I don't love, I'm not like, I get if it's a left outer, like, but like, I just don't love joins. I think they're sloppy looking. And so like, is there anything wrong with doing it this way in your grading opinion?
I don't think so. And, I think that there are plenty of you in this cohort specifically that have more experience with SQL than I do. I will say that when it comes to doing this in active record, it kind of doesn't matter because it'll do it for us. So that's what I will say about that. I'm trying to think of a scenario, and maybe we could probably clean this up too. Like, I don't think we need to alias this. I think we could probably just say songs, artists, just so this is a little more clear.
Sure.
Where artist.id, songs, and then select everything from artists and songs. Let me just see if that works. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very similar. You know, I don't know. I would say this is probably getting into more like style and maybe a little bit more of like a personal preference in terms of like, or maybe not even personal, like a team preference. What would your team prefer? I don't know if there's any like functional difference or any performance difference between this version and what we've done up here. You can see that they still have the same similar components, right? It's still referencing both table names, and it still says what the relation should be between those two tables. And I think you started to get into it a little bit, Natia, but I'll talk about inner versus outer versus left, right a little bit later. I think this would be doing an inner join. I don't think there would be a way to do this specific syntax with an outer join.
I think like, so the way that like I was kind of like raised to do it is like there's a little parentheses with a plus in it, and you just like put that on the side of your word clause where you want. It just like makes it short. And like I always hated Microsoft SQL like with all the joins, but if you don't care, that's what I needed to know. So
yeah, I don't have a strong preference here.
Great.
Yeah. You said I was raised doing this. I'm imagining you're like 4 years old and you're writing like SQL queries in your parents in your kitchen table.
Not quite. I mean, like
not quite. No.
Raised through my 20s.
Okay. Well, let's go to Lawrence next.
Would you be willing to show us table joins where you're joining a table to itself? Just in this view?
We could do that. So we could say, okay, so we said, I guess the first thing to look at is just to be explicit about the parts of this join query. So a join is going to have this join keyword, and we'll kind of like forget about Natia's alternate syntax for now, just so we can stick with one thing. So we're going to have a join statement here, which essentially connects these two tables. So we're saying songs join artists. Okay, these are the two tables we're trying to join. And then we have to say on to tell it how they're joined. So in the slides, I said rows are connected by matching foreign key from one table to primary key on the other table. And almost always, that is this right here. So we're saying match the artist ID to the song's artist ID. Artists.id to songs.artist ID. So I said almost always you connect those two together, but not always. We could try to come up with something. So let's say I want to select artists.star from artists, join artists on, and then I'm trying to come up with an example of why I might join these two tables together. So I guess I could do something like this. I guess I could say on created at equals updated at. And so essentially this would be find artists that have never been updated. So if created at equals updated at, then that would just be an artist that never was updated. And then table name artists specify more than once. Maybe I can't show you how to do this. Do I need to change this to inner join maybe? Yeah, can anyone help me out here how I might do this or what I'm missing? Natia, do you know?
I would just say if you do use the other syntax, then you can alias the tables and just make the same one of them A and one of them B. And then you can refer to them both separately.
So this is a scenario where we need to alias them.
If I mean, how I would do it is I would say, yeah, artists, whatever, and then you can utilize them separately.
I'm gonna stick with artist 1 and artist 2 just so that it can be clear about what they are. And then invalid from artists.
You no longer have a table called artists because you've aliased the other two. So you're in your select clause, you have to
Ha
fill
ha ha. There we go. There we go. So to circle back to Lawrence's question, like, can you show us when we would join a table to itself? There's not really like, we don't really have good setup data for this. I think a good example was in the PG exercises where they had a users table, and a users table had a referral. I think it was actually members, but either way it represented like a user, like a person. And one of the columns was referral ID. So it was referring to another user. So it was a user table and one user would be referred by another user. That's a much better example of when you would join a table to itself. We really don't have a good setup here. This is kind of silly. It's like join where created at equals updated at. That's, I don't know. I don't know if you would actually need to do that. But this also gets at the point that you don't always match foreign key to primary key, but most of the times we do. And then I think after this, we're going to get into, I think I'd actually like to do the exploration first. Yeah. So I'll give you all a chance to play around with this a little bit in Active Record. Any of the questions coming up? Let me go back to this original SQL statement here. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a POM here. When we come back, we will get our hands dirty, so to speak, with some Active Record. So let's come back at 10:48. All right, everybody, it is 48. So up next, we're going to do this active record exploration. This is found online on slide 6. So this exploration, what I want you all to do, I'm gonna put you into some small groups. I'm gonna shake it up from your pairs this morning. And I've got some statements for you all to execute. So what I want you to do is I want one person in the group to share your screen and run these commands. And then I want you all to talk through these questions. A lot of the we're going to follow up on this, and slide 7 does have some maybe some of it are some answers to these questions. Avoid going on to slide 7 and looking ahead. Try to like just do your best, answer these questions on your own, and then we will make sure we kind of answer all of them together. I think that's about it. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and make some breakout rooms. Does anyone have any questions? Cool, and I'm going to give you all 10 minutes to work through this.
join recording in progress. Hi, Brian.
Hello.
We're running into a problem running this second.
Yes. What you have to do is you have to replace your quotes. If you copy and paste from the slides, the quotes
Oh.
are a different quote. It's like a different character.
Okay, I see that now.
Yeah, and you can even see the highlighting changes as you add in those quotes.
Mhm.
There you
Okay,
go.
so if we do this, thank you, sorry.
No, you're good. You're welcome.
There we go.
Oh, you're recording us now. Congratulations. We're on
No.
big camera.
I think I'm recording you.
Yeah.
Oh.
This one's more useful. We're getting all the songs of all the artists.
Which one are you all working on right now? Songs, artist, select. That one?
Song.joins artist.
Cool.
All right,
You
now,
wanted to
so now paste in that command. So don't copy the limit.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then push a semicolon.
Relationship, so to speak.
That's how I like picture it in my head anyways. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
For sure.
Helpful.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult for me to picture in my head at first, but anyways, so
Cool. And then can you redo that join the, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so now you can see we have 3 instead of just the 2. Do the, maybe the pretty,
The only thing that I know is if we type it in here, like this is active record in the console, then like Richard pointed out, you can copy how.
There we go. So we had a question. Basically when we run the command artist.select artist songs.join songs, it only returns to us just the artists. And my thinking is that's supposed to return the artist and the row, or I should say how we have it here where it shows like the artist and the songs all together.
Yeah, we'll go over that. Yeah, that is a good thought. Why, like, what the heck? I thought I was going to see both of this data, both data from both tables. Yeah, you're right.
So does it have to do with like lazy loading or something, or is it something different?
Not quite. It's something different. It's a little more straightforward than that. I'll go over it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Did you all get how are y'all doing with this? I think I might give you all a couple more minutes.
Yeah, we're working through. We just kind of like got caught up in like, why aren't we getting what we want for this? And then we're gonna run the last command here.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm gonna give everybody 5 minutes.
Hi, Brian.
Hello.
We have a question.
Yeah.
So this one should be showing us the songs as well, I feel like, because it's selecting artists and songs. And when we run the post-a-code query, it's got artists and songs. But when I pretty print it, all we see are the artists.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. That's what I want you to, you're asking the right questions. I will go over this when we come back together.
Okay.
Were you able to get to all three of the commands?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think I'm going to close this out now and we'll go ahead and talk about that.
Okay.
I guess I did that a little preemptively.
Brian got to be alone with Caleb's hair. Jealous.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of these together. So yeah, I ran the first query here. Let me just do it again. So I'm going to do artist.joins songs, and I am sharing. Am I recording as well? Okay, I am recording. Okay, cool. So I'm going to artist.join songs, and I'm going to get some stuff back. And I always like to do the pretty print command, and I'll do pretty print underscore to say pretty print the last thing that was run. And so then we can see this in some individual lines, which is going to be helpful. So can I get a volunteer to answer this first question? So what does this return? What attributes do you see in the return value? Which tables do those attributes correspond to? So can I get a volunteer? Maybe someone I haven't heard from yet today. Let's do some random. So let's go. Yeah. Cool. Jen. So the question is, what does this return? What attributes do you see in the return value? Which table do those correspond to? Yeah.
It returns. I was lost. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
And let me
I
do
don't
it one more
know. I
time.
was stuck on the last one. Sorry.
Here, let me do this one more time. And yeah, if you need to bump to the classmate, that's fine.
Is it returning everything from the artist's table, or all the attributes, and joining? No, that's half of a sentence. I'm gonna go ahead and bump it because I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, and let me maybe throw in an additional thing here. What type of object is returned? How would you describe that? Yeah, let's go to, now I just do Susie.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, Brian.
So what does this return? What attributes do you see in the return value? Which tables do those correspond to? Any of those three?
Yeah, here it's returning all the rows from artists and the songs as well, based off of the artist, of course, with the songs that correspond to each artist ID.
Can you, if I look at, well, let me ask you this, Susie, what what type of object is this? So I look at this little arrow here, that's my return value. What type of objects is this? Let's go to Jen. So Jen, you got your hand up.
For the redemption, is it an array, is what you're asking?
Yes, yeah, it is an array. We can see here like square brackets. Is that what you picked up on, Jen? Some of these square brackets here. Yep, so it's an array. It's a little bit more than an array. Joe?
Yeah, so it's an active record relation or active record like object, and it's returning, like Susie was saying, it's supposed to return the combination of the artist table and the songs table, but what we actually see in Rails console is just the an array of the artist and their attributes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that's a good clarification when Susie was saying we're going to get song and artist information. That's what we would think we were going to get back if we're joining the tables together. But I only see these artist IDs and names in here. I don't actually see any song titles. And yes, Joe, you're right. This is an active record relation. I can see my Ruby object syntax here, this little pound and then less than symbol. And then that will tell me what type of object it is. It's an active record relation. And it is, we can think of it like an array, think of it like a super array. It's got like special active record powers, but it's essentially an array. So I could like each over it, I could do dot max, whatever. Okay. So let's talk about the SQL. So I'll answer the first one, what SQL does this execute? So whenever I run something in the Rails console, it will show me the SQL that's executed. So that's this part right here. So then the question is, how are these tables joined and what does the select do? So looking at those two parts of the queries. Yeah. Mark, do you have a question before we move on, or are you volunteering?
It was a question I noticed, I think we're chatting about in our group, that ... at the end before the close bracket. Is there a way to see the rest of the table in active record?
Yeah, I would just do the pp underscore command, the pretty print, and that will show you everything here. So now we can actually see, this is a better representation of what I was describing earlier. So Susie said we would think we're going to get back song and artist information, but we really just see artist information. We don't see anything here. That's a little bit more visual. And if there's no ... it just gives us everything.
Oh, but it doesn't show the songs as well.
Yeah, we still haven't figured that part out yet. Still not quite there.
Okay.
Alex.
I have a question. So I had copied that line, the select line, and put it into my Postico, and it threw me an error. What happened? Like, is there something that gets printed with that line that's not actually supposed to be in Postico? Because I think it also happened to Jen, and Richard solved the problem, but.
Yeah, when we took the limit out, it worked. fine.
But I didn't put the limit in. But if this is off the rails, then we can move on, but. Oh, you're on mute, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, I see what you're talking about now. So this one right here, when we just did artist.join star, it threw in an extra limit here. And it seems like this is $1 is accepting an argument, which I think is this argument right here. So essentially this is limiting it to 11 rows. I think that sometimes the Rails console does that just so that it doesn't overload your terminal with information. So what I would do is I would just kind of leave that part off. I would just copy this part and take that into Postico and put that right here. I want to see if that works. There we go. So in Postico, we also don't see the artist or the song information. So we're only seeing the song information. So that's kind of where we're going next. How are these tables joined? What does the select statement do? Jermaine, are you volunteering? Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna attempt. So since we're selecting artists from the artist table, but only the artists that have a relationship with the songs table will show, which is all of them, and not the songs, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, so which part of that is kind of like determining that which part of that, the statement, is it the inner join on part or the select part, which is determining which part of it is making it so that we're not seeing the song data.
I would say this, we're not seeing it. I would think it's the songs on songs. Well, yeah, actually, I don't know. I would say artists from artists, because that would just bring out artists, but I don't know where the songs would come from if there's no information about the songs on the artist table.
Mhm. This kind of gets at like just how does SQL work a little bit. So like when we're talking about what data is returned back to us, which part of the SQL query really determines that. Yeah, so let's go to Lee. Do you know?
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I was going to ask a clarifying question, but I can like back it up and wait if you need.
So let's go ahead. I think I'm kind of dancing around this a little bit too much. So I do want to answer this. So what does the select statement do? If I look at our select statement only includes artist.star. So Jermaine, you started getting into like it's looking at it's looking at where there's a relationship between the songs and the artist. Yes, it is doing that. But when it comes to SQL queries and what data we get back from those queries, that is the select statement. So the select statement determines what data we actually get returned. So in our select statement, we only see select artist.star. There's no songs in here. If I go over to the Postico version, this is probably a little bit easier to see. We're only selecting artist.star. So that's why we're only seeing this artist information over here. And in our Rails console session. Alex? Was that from before? Lee, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I'm interested in, we then went into a Rails DB console session and typed in the select, I don't need to read it all to you all, but essentially we put that in there and we were given a table with like all of the things essentially. So I was wondering kind of the difference there and why in Rails DB console with that same command, it gave us the whole table with the artists and the songs, whereas in Rails C, it just, and even there, it just gave us the artists.
Lee, I can answer this question for you, maybe specifically to what we were doing, but it's because we were saying select artist.star, comma, songs.star. In SQL, in the database console.
This is the first one though.
Yeah, we were, because we typed it in, remember? Because I like, instead of copy pasting it, we didn't copy paste it. We like.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And one note on that is that what we're doing here in Postico, you would see the same exact thing in the DB console. So if you were seeing something different, that would tell me that the command itself was different. So let's go ahead and talk about this next version. So this first version, we saw that the SQL that was produced by artist.join_songs did not select any of the song data. So in this second command right here, this command includes a select statement. I put a broadcast message out for this, but if you try and copy paste quotes, a lot of times they're not the right quotes. So I actually have to replace these with these single quotes right here. So that's a little gotcha, copy paste. And so now I get a very, very similar SQL command, but now I also see songs.star over here. I see that we are trying to select songs now. I'm going to pretty print this return value. And now my question is, do you see that song data? I'm seeing a lot of shaking heads. No, we are still not seeing our song data. Okay, so just to recap where we've gone so far. First version didn't select any song data, so we didn't get any song data back. Second version, it looks like it's selecting the songs data, but I'm still not seeing it. Let's take this now and put it into Postico. Whoops. And see what this does. And actually, I'm going to undo this and I'm just going to type it out so that we can really see the difference between this last version and the next version, which essentially just adds also select songs.star from this joined query. So now let's run this and boom, there is our song data. So we're seeing it in Postico. We're seeing that the SQL is returning that this SQL command is selecting that artist, or sorry, that song data. We're just not seeing it in our console session over here. So database query showing the song data, Rails still not showing the song data. The way that I would describe this, and a lot of you all like were asking for help and using the ask for help button, and not a lot, but I had a couple questions, and it kind of feels like you might be doing something wrong. There's nothing that you're doing wrong here. That data is there, you just can't see it. So I'll say that one more time. The data is there, we just can't see it. So for example, I said this thing was an array, so we could call like .first on this array. That will give me my artist information here with my name and everything. And if I call .name on it, that's going to give me my artist name. But what if I want to see the song title? I can call .title on this and it gives me Raspberry Beret. Boom, there is some song data. So what's going on here is that this is when you select data that's not part of the model. So for instance, we're referring to the artist model right here. See how this query starts with artist. When you select data that's not part of that model, like songs.star, it creates virtual attributes. So those attributes are the data that's not part of the original model. So that data is there, you just can't see it, but you can access it. I can call .title on this object. So that's like a big Rails gotcha thing. Some other things that I want to circle back to is that if we take off the select statement, the default behavior of Active Record is always to select everything from the model that you start the query with. So Active Record assumes a lot based on what model starts off the query. And so when I say starts the query, I'm looking at just this first thing right here. So capital A artist, by default, that produces a select artist.star. And notice that I can't call .first.title here because I did not select that song column. So Active Record makes a lot of assumptions based on the model that starts the query, including the select statement. So a lot of times we need to tell it what it needs to select, like this. And I think that's all for the second query here. All right, let's go ahead and do this last one, song.joins_artist. And we'll see what this was. And I want you all to just take a second to read through this error. You might have done this already, but really read through this whole thing. Joe?
Sorry, is the question like why this error is happening?
Yeah, that was going to be, so what error does this produce? I'll go ahead and just read it. We get Active Record configuration error, can't join song to association named artist, perhaps you misspelled it. The next question, why is this error happening? How would you fix it?
So the error is happening because a song belongs to an artist, a singular artist, not artist. So if you change that to song.joins, and then take out the S. Yeah, it should work.
Yep, exactly. So you're picking up on a really key point here. If I open up my code here, this is the point where I actually need to go check out my models. And go to my artist model. And let me produce that error one more time. So song.joins artist, it says active record configuration can't join to song to association. So I mentioned this in week 1 when I taught you all about active record associations. The associations are very powerful. And here's another place where they are coming up. So when active record is joining tables together, it uses associations to join those tables. Associations are specifically our has manys and our belongs tos. So we can't join an artist, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong model here. When we're trying to join a song to the artists table, even though the table is called artists with an S, the association is called artist. So whenever you're joining, you need to specify an association. And so we would fix it by making song.joins artist to match belongs to artist. So how does active record know how to join tables? Associations. And then what does the SQL execute, or what SQL is executed? What does the select do? So same thing here, because we started with the song model, notice that it's selecting everything from songs. It doesn't reference anything on artist. So I can't call like .first.name here. So what I'd have to do, well, applying what we learned in the last example, I would have to say select artist.star, songs.star, and then after we do that, then we can call our artist names. Alex?
So is the difference between this and making a joins table from like yesterday, is that this is temporary or no?
When you say yesterday, you're referring to Friday, the many-to-many class?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, that is the difference. So we mentioned this earlier, this is pulling data into a temporary table. So this return value right here, this is just temporary information. This is not like saved to the database anywhere, versus when you are creating a many-to-many relationship, you are creating a permanent join table in your database that manages that relationship. And when I say temporary, I mean, if I type exit here, that all that data that we've joined together and all that, it's gone. It's totally gone. Versus the joined table, like playlist songs, that is stored in the database. So if I open up the Rails console, all of that data is still there. I think if I do playlist song dot all, I don't actually have any playlists, so it's not going to work. But that data would still be there. Great question. All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and take a palm, and when we come back at we'll come back at 11:35. We'll wrap some of this up. All right, it's 35, so let's get back into it. This next slide here is going to be kind of like reviewing or re-emphasizing some of the key points of that exploration. So when we do something like artist.join songs, how does Active Record know how to join these tables? Your associations. So in our artist model, we have an artist has many songs. So we can say artist.join songs, and based on that association, Active Record will know to match those foreign keys and primary keys. So we saw in the Postico, if I go back over to Postico, I have to say, I'll take out the inner for now, join songs on songs.artistid equals artist.id. Because a song belongs to an artist, that matches up foreign key and primary key for us. So we don't have to specify that in Active Record. So when I said 99% of the times we're matching our foreign key to primary key, that's the default behavior of joins in Active Record. Can you override that? Yes. Do we? Almost never. So this is going to return our Active Record relation object. This is like our super array. It's an array essentially, but it does some other things. It represents a collection of Active Record objects. It looks and behaves just like an array, but we can't see any song data on it. So then we added in artist.select artist.star songs.star. So by default, artist.join songs will just select artist information. So we try to override the select statement. It will still model that data as artist objects, and they will have virtual attributes. So this is what I was describing before. So we can call .first.play_count on this. So we can call, we can access song attributes on this joined table. We're just not going to see them if we try to like pretty print out or something like that. So that's some of the like really core need to know information here. Yeah, let's do some questions. Let's go to Aaliyah.
Can you talk a little bit about like when you would want to use artist.joins, since it's not returning any of the data from songs, it's just returning the data from artists? Like what's a case where you might use that over like adding a select statement?
Yeah, so when we don't select the song data, we're not going to get it back in the return value, but that might not be what we're trying to get. So some of the problems we're going to work through, I'm going to give you all some time to work on some problems. We'll say things like get all artists where they have songs with play counts greater than 200. So you essentially just use the songs to find appropriate artists. That would be an example. Jameson?
So in that second example, it's I don't want to say it's equivalent, but if you did songs, song.selects, and then artists, everything from songs, and then joins artists to it, all that, it's all the same data. It's just the like primitive object you're getting back would be like a song instead of an artist.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So essentially Jameson is asking, well, we saw we can join from songs to artists or artist to song. So if we reverse that, does it change anything? The key thing that it changes is the model you start with. So remember I said the model you start with determines a lot of things, such as how that data is modeled. So like in the terminal over here, song.joins artists, artist. Whoops. Let me try that one more time. Song.joins artist will return to me, and if I pretty print that out, let me make that bigger. If I pretty print that out, it will return to me song objects because I started with song. And then if I do artist.joins songs and pretty print that out, now they're modeled as artist objects. So I would say that's the key difference. Yeah, but essentially you're still working with the same data. Other questions? Mark?
Can I clarify that point? Are you saying the first bullet is the same as the second bullet. And if you did like artist.joins songs dot first dot play count, you'll get the same return?
Not quite. In this first bullet here, if we try to do something like this down here where we say dot first dot play count, that would not work on this first one because this first one is not selecting that song data, which includes the play count.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I want to give you all some time to practice here. I'm going to skip over types of joins. I would recommend that you look through the slides and talk and at least review this. It's not something that's going to come up very often for us in Mod 2. I think more important would be to get some practice and kind of go over like how would we use some of this. I do want to talk very briefly about thinking about SQL queries. I would recommend that you think about them in this order. So start with what tables do I need? That's your from statement. And then think about what I talked about at the beginning of class. Do I need data from multiple tables? And if so, then I need to join them together. So I kind of think of that as like my working data set. Just start with what are all the tables that I'm going to use, and then everything will flow from there. Then you need to think about, I would say 2 and 3, you could like reverse the orders, but think about what rows do you need from those tables, which is going to be your where statement, and what columns do you need, that would be your select statement. And then think about how should you format that data. So are you ordering the data? Do you want to limit it to only certain rows? And do you want to only look at distinct rows? So this will come up again later when we get to grouping and aggregating and some of our more advanced SQL classes. Okay, so now I want to give you some time to do these practice problems. So let's go ahead and I'll give, let's just do this individually. So I would say do this in the Rails console, or you could also write model methods if you're feeling up for it. But I would say Rails console would be my recommendation. Yeah, so I'll give you all 10 minutes to start this. And if you're feeling really good about this content, I would say go straight to the third one, which goes into playlists. Playlist is where it gets tricky. I think what I'll do is I'll give you all just a few minutes to work on the first one, and then we'll go over that one together. Let's go over the first one at 11:50. I want to do a quick check-in with you all. Can I get a thumbs up if you, a reaction thumbs up if you were able to get the first query? Cool. So I think I'm going to go over this one now then, a little earlier than I had said. I said 11:50, but I think it'd be better to give you all some quick feedback right now. So I want to do which artists have songs with a length greater than 400. So in my terminal over here, I'm looking for artists with songs greater than 400. So because I need artists and their corresponding songs, I'm going to need to join those tables together. So in that previous slide, thinking through join queries, that's where I would start. So what tables do I need? Do I need data from multiple tables? If so, join them together. So I am going to need data from both tables. So I would start with artist.joins songs. And usually as I'm working through these, I start off with, can I just do the join state? So rather than like putting all of the methods together at once, I just start with, can I join the tables that I think I need? So yes, I think I've joined those tables together. And then I'm looking for artists that have a song length greater than, what was it? Which artists have songs with a length greater than 400? Yeah, so then I could add in here dot where, and then I could add in a quote here to say length greater than, and then I can use my question mark syntax, and then pass that an argument of 400. And that's how I would do that. Just to show you why we need the joins, if I take out the joins and I try to just say where the length is greater than 400, it's going to say column length does not exist because an artist does not have a length column, and we're only looking at the artist table in this case. So we need to look at both the artist and the songs table. Regina?
Can you tell me again why you can just say artist.joins instead of the second one that was artist.select artist.star, comma, songs.star? Like, I thought you needed that longer version. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we only need that select statement if we need to get that song data back. So in this case, we're not actually looking for songs. We're using the songs to find specific artists. If it said find all the artists and the songs where the length is greater than 400, then yes, I would want to change that select statement. But in this case, if I do dot first, that will give me my artist with the name of Prince, but it didn't ask me for like what the title of the song was. So I can't call dot title to see what that song is. So I would have, that's where I would have to add in dot select artist.star, songs.star.
So it's because you're only wanting the artist information back. You don't need the song information back.
Exactly, yeah. Another way I might say it is the select really determines what is in your return value. But if you, yeah, it determines what's in the return value. In this case, we don't need song data, so we don't need to add it to the return value.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Sid?
For your parentheses and your where statement, do you have to do it where it's like greater than question mark and then comma 400? Could you just do greater than 400?
You could. It would not be the like most proper active record way to do it,
Okay.
but you can do that. Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and let me go back to the version where we're not. Let me just do this. There we go. Artist.join songs for length greater than 400. Caleb?
My apologies if this information is located in the lesson. However, on that many-to-many branch, it does not look like there are any playlists made in the seed file. Should we just go create some of our own, or is there another branch we should switch to?
I think you could go ahead and create some of your own, but the other thing is you don't necessarily need playlists in this case. Like, yeah, you're not going to have any data to test it with, but you're just writing the query. So the query might actually return you any playlist, but you can still write it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
But yeah, if we had some more time, I would definitely say like, let's add in some playlists. Well, really what I would say is like, let's write a test. Let's make a model method. Let's do all that. Regina.
I'm sure you're probably going to go into this. I am really curious about how to do the playlist because that's the part I'm really anxious to know about. But where do you put this within your code when you're wanting to make it accessible?
Yeah. So because this is all database query logic, this is like when we're doing like SQL, active record, query logic, the first thing you should think of is models. Models handle this logic. So I would say all of this is going to be wrapped in model methods. So for instance, I could take this code that I wrote to find songs with a length greater than 400, and I could put it in my artist model and say def, I'll just call it artist with songs length greater than 400. Horrible name, but I could do it like this. And notice that I'm dealing with the entire artist table. I'm not dealing with a singular artist. So that would make this a good choice for a class method. So that's what that might look like.
Okay. And so basically the clue is whatever that first word is. In this case, artist, so it'd go in the artist model.
Yeah, usually whatever the first thing in the query is a good clue to where you should put the method.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Alex?
Is there any preference as to what you should be, I don't want to say like language, but like what you should be using, like Rails console versus Rails DB console? Because I feel like switching back and forth is where I'm getting confused. So if I can like pick one and stick with it, is there a preference or?
Yeah, I would say that Rails console is the preference because Rails console gives you access to your models. Rails DB console only gives you access to your database, which means in DB console, you're writing SQL. In Rails console, you're writing active record. So usually we're writing active record. So I would say I use the console far more often than I use the DB console. Natia?
If you want to join on multiple fields, can you do that with the join command, or would you have to do that with a where command?
If you want to, yes, you can join on multiple fields. And usually anytime you want to override the join syntax, rather than like passing a symbol, usually you pass a string. And here's where you would just write out join. If I was gonna, I mean, I could just do this, join songs on songs.artists ID equals artists.id. Yeah, so you can just manually write out the join like that. So anytime where you're not joining on association, that's usually the syntax you're going to use. Jameson?
I always forget what I call my column names in my database. Is there like a handy method in Rails where you can like ask it what the column name is? I guess
So
there
if
would be a
you-
method at the end of the day.
If you just type in the class name, it will tell you like this in Rails
Ooh.
console. And I think there is is it like .attributes? I'm pretty sure there's another one. I think the answer is yes, but I don't know what it is. But if I wanted to do that, like you're describing, I usually just type in the name of the model and then it gives me the columns.
That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I do want to go over the I'll go over this third one here because this is going to get into another pretty cool use case of associations. So which playlists have a song with a length greater than 400? So we just did find the artists that have songs greater than 400. Now we're doing playlists with songs greater than 400. What makes this complicated is that the relationship between a playlist and a song is that many-to-many relationship with the playlist song join table sitting in between the two. So essentially what we have is we now have 3 tables that we need to join together. So when we have 3 tables we need to join together, well, I'm just going to follow what I did earlier, or maybe not exactly what I did earlier, but like what I talked about earlier, which was we join on associations. So I'm going to need to join those tables together. So let's go to our playlist model. And we can see here that we have our association has many songs, but that is not just a normal has many association. That is a has many association that goes through playlist songs. So let's see what happens when we do playlist joins songs. And let me go half and half here. Actually, let me go like that. Yeah. So I'm doing playlist.join songs, and take a minute to just look at that SQL that was produced. So what we can see here is that when we say playlist.join songs and the playlist association goes through playlist songs, it joins all 3 of those together automatically. So we can see from playlists, inner join playlist songs, inner join songs. So Active Record, because we've set up those associations, just knew how to join all 3 of those tables together for us. So back to what I was talking about earlier and what I talked about in week 1, associations are very, very powerful. Here's a great example. Look at all of this SQL that was written for us just from this one line of Active Record. So playlist.join songs joined 3 tables together. So now that I have access to playlist songs, and songs just from this one statement here, I could chain on, just like I did before, .where length greater than 400 to find playlists with songs greater than 400. Now, as Caleb pointed out, we don't have any playlists right now, but we can still write the query as this. The final thing that I'll leave you with is that what we saw here is a through statement that goes through one table. So playlist has many songs through playlist songs. There is no limit to how many tables you can go through. So you can set these associations up going through 1 table, going through 2 tables, going through 6 tables, going through 10 tables. And with one simple statement like joins, you can join all of those tables together. And that is going to be a big topic in the group project. So for now, this is not going to be the last time we talk about joins. It's not going to be the last time we talk about Active Record. We're going to have 2 more big classes, grouping and aggregating, and we're going to do a SQL and Active Record practice in week 5. But that is it for today. Go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you all very much.